I'm a believer, and I believe in prayer. And I know that at this moment of such heartbreak and loss in that community, that what most Americans are most able to do is to pray for those families.
Vice President Pence speaking out in support of offering thoughts and prayers in the wake of this tragedy after some lawmakers on the left slammed Republicans for not doing enough when it comes to gun control. Now the Senate Judiciary Committee ranking member Dianne Feinstein will call for a hearing following the church massacre. Let's discuss it with former New York Congresswoman Nan Hayworth and Democratic strategist Brad Woodhouse, former communications director for the DNC. Good morning to both of you.
Thank you, Sam.
Congresswoman, it's really hard for some of us to understand and even fathom those that want to attack prayer in the days that followed this horrific tragedy that played out Sunday morning.
Right. And Sandra, I think most Americans by far would say that the value of prayer and the value of faith and the value of personal faith and faith in communities is only a good thing. It is an unalloyed good. And having said that, I think it's wrong to assail prayer in every respect. I do think it is certainly time as well, always as a nation, to contemplate how we can protect the innocent, how we can prevent these sorts of horrific crimes, these acts of madness, whenever we can. And in that regard, I think it's appropriate for all of us to seek not to be divisive, but to be inclusive and to be thoughtful about how we do this.
It does feel like it got political very quickly in the hours that followed this attack. Brad, I saw you shaking your head, but I want to first, before we get your reaction, share with you William McGurn's op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, former speechwriter for George W. Bush. He put his thoughts into these words. Over the next few weeks, the surviving members of the First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs will wrap their fallen in love and lay them to rest. What these survivors may individually believe about gun control is anyone's guess, but it's hard to believe that the way to their hearts is by mocking offers of prayer, even from Republicans. Brad?
Well, look, this is not about mocking offers of prayer. And look, if thoughts and prayers are a moral virtue, a moral failure is Republicans who would rather represent the interests of the NRA than do something to prevent these tragedies. It's not about offering thoughts and prayers. That's fine. Barack Obama offered thoughts and prayers after this latest tragedy. But he also went on to say that more needs to be done to prevent these tragedies. Why not thoughts and prayers and ban bump stocks?
Well, just so you know, that is being discussed now, Brad. That is being discussed. And when you say that it's not mocking, I think some people would respond by saying there are some tweets and some of those thoughts and mockings that I wouldn't even be comfortable putting on the screen right now, coming from the likes of celebrities and others that were extremely harsh.
Look, but again, after every one of these tragedies that's done, domestic terrorism, Republicans come with thoughts and prayers, and then they say, we can't talk about anything else.
Okay, so let's talk about what is being discussed about being done. So
but hold on.
Hold on. I want to get the Congresswoman back in here, because what we do know now is that Chuck Grassley has confirmed, and his office has announced that they will be holding this hearing in 1 week. Firearm accessory regulation, of course, that's addressing the bump stock issue, and enforcing federal and state reporting to the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, known as the NICS. All right, there seems to be agreement on the bump stocks, Congresswoman. Tell me if I'm wrong, on both sides of the aisle. We heard that following the Las Vegas shooting on the bump stocks. As far as the reporting is concerned, Jeff Flake, a Republican, says he's working on legislation to require the military report domestic violence convictions to the National Background Check System. Brad, I'm hearing Republicans, maybe it's a few days later, but they are trying to address some of the issues they see here. Congresswoman?
Yes, I agree with you, Sandra. I think if we can come to agreement about certain ways in which we can try to convert these events into far less dangerous ones, that's perfectly valid. But we have to look at the criminals themselves. We have to look at a man like this one who clearly had a deranged mind and hideous intents that had been obvious. And in fact, the Air Force, as we know, failed to report, as they were required to do by Air Force protocol, at the very least, that this man was involved in a hideous act of domestic abuse in which he cracked his stepson's skull and should never have had access to firearms. And these are the very challenging conversations that we have to have, because it's not firearms per se that are dangerous. It is the people who have access to them and use them for this kind of intent. And in fact, this man was stopped by a good man who had a firearm as well.
So, Brad, you know, what we're hearing is calls for laws on rules that already exist. The Air Force has already said multiple times right here on this network, they dropped the ball. They didn't report what they had an agreement to report that would have restricted a man like that from acquiring and purchasing a gun.
Well, yeah, and that's important, and they need to correct that. But there's a lot more that needs to be done. Look, we're weeks after the Las Vegas tragedy, and we're having a hearing on bump stocks. You know, Republicans came out and said, you know, we should look at bump stocks. The NRA said we should look at bump stocks. We're having a hearing on it. Why not go to the floor? They didn't hold a hearing in the House on their health care bill. Why not go to the floor with a bill to ban bump stocks?
All right. We told you it was going to be a debate. It was a debate. Congresswoman Brad, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, John Scott's coming up next. Happening now, rolling your way just in a couple of minutes. John, how are you?
Good morning, Bill. Good morning to you. Democrats swing.